Welcome to Just a Tip with Jake and Timmy.
Yeah.
What's going on, everyone? Jake here with Uncommon ADC. Welcome to Just a Tip, episode 10.
I'm Tim from Tim School Fish.
And we are joined by Scott of AriesEDC. Thank you so much for joining us, Scott.
Hey, welcome. I am excited to be here. This is going to be fun.
Yeah,
man. Thanks for joining us. Let's
shout
out some folks.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. I see Marco, O Father EDC, Jeff Jackson, Navy 85, Joseph F. S. I'm sorry. Skibby, Kathleen.
Yep. How's it going, everyone? Also, shout out to our moderators. Don't think I've seen any of them on yet, but it'll be Randy's WSG, Bluminati Ninja, and Cheeto Bandito.
Yeah, most of you guys are probably subscribed to those guys already, but if you're not, make sure you go subscribe to them. And of course, make sure that you are subscribed to AriesEDC. Scott, I know that you are on YouTube. I know that you are on Instagram. Is there any other socials where people should go and follow you?
Just those two as of right now.
Yeah.
I did start Patreon, but I don't know if that's really considered the social media side of things, but just YouTube and Instagram, and I have my Etsy store if you're interested in purchasing some of the goods that I have.
What's your Etsy store? Is it AriesEDC?
Yeah, everything's AriesEDC.
All right.
Perfect. That makes it easy. All right, so let's dive into it. Try and keep it to an hour as usual. So can you tell us a little bit about just how AriesEDC started?
Well, all right. Do you want to keep this as an hour? So I'll keep that story down. So basically, with the job that I had, I found myself that I always carried a folding knife, and I was just getting into production folders. But at the job I had, I was having issues with some of the work that I was doing. It was causing the pivots I was cutting open powders and different materials, and it was getting all logged up into the pivot. I found myself having to take apart the pivot all the time. And then I saw this thing sitting at a big box store, and I was like, you know what? Maybe a little fixed blade is the key. So I picked up my little minimalist and was like, yeah, this is the key. I was using this to open all that stuff. I didn't have to worry about anything else. And I think with anybody that you get into knives, you end up start drawing it, you start getting creative, and you start drawing out an idea. And that's exactly kind of where I did it. And I drew out a blade, and I kind of obsessed over this thing. And I was just like, I need to have this. I need to do it. So I drew it, and then I cut it out, and I was like holding it in this little piece of paper in my hand. And then I've always been good with wood, so I ended up making a wooden blank out of it. And then I would just walk around the house holding this thing in my hand, and my wife probably got tired of me and was like, you know what, why don't you find somebody to actually make that? And I was kind of like, what? And so I did some shopping around. I shot at some makers the picture of this to be like, hey, do you think this would be something you could make for me? And, I didn't get a lot of feedback. And I found somebody here in Florida that was like, yeah, I could do that. And I was like, cool, I'll ship this to you so you have the blank so that you can make it. Long story short, I had a really bad experience with that maker. He gave me a timeline. The timeline came and went. I never really heard back from him. He never sent me pictures of what was going on or updates with the knife. And while all that was going on, I went to a local knife show, the Gator Cutlery Club here in Central Florida in Lakeland. And I got to talking to somebody, and they introduced me to stock removal knife making. And which I had no idea that was a thing. I thought everything had to be hand forged and everything else. And he kind of explained the process and everything else. And my wife was like, my wife she's responsible for all of this. She was like, you could probably do that. And I was like, you think? And she's like, go shopping, put together a list of things you might need, and I started talking to this guy that I met at the show, and then I ended up getting everything I needed to turn the obsession into the actual obsession. And that's my first knife I ever made.
I was just about to ask, is that the very first one?
Yeah, this is the very first one. I'm not terribly proud of the work, but for my first time going, it's not terrible. It's 440C steel, so it is a stainless steel black micarta with blue liners, and as my little thing, I like small little fixed blades.
Yeah.
And this kind of fit into everything that I did. So I was able to take my obsession and turn it into the real thing. So, and then once I was able to take raw material and do this and end up with a functioning tool, just that was it. I was hooked. And then it was like, okay, well, what else can I do? And then I started to draw and come up with all these different designs and find my little niche. AriesEDC is just because everything that I think of is everyday carry. As I've never been into really big knives and really big blades, even with my production folders that I carry on a daily basis. That maybe 3 inches and under is kind of where I like to be. I might go up to 3 1/4, but anything bigger than that, it's too much blade, and I don't really need anything that big on a daily basis. So then I just kind of took that and put it into the fixed blades I was making, and there's not stealing from my minimalist that I have, just to have a little cutting tool like this. I don't need anything more than just that for my everyday world. So I can't be the only one who thinks that way. So that's kind of where all of this started.
Right.
It was a bad experience with another maker, and I just was like, okay, I can do this better.
Now, are you still making that pattern, that model?
Yeah, I've made some. I made one recently out of Damascus. And it turned out really good. So yeah, I still make that pattern. It's something that I still offer. If somebody wants one, we're going to get to probably the books and everything else, but it's a model that I still offer. So yeah, the Obsession.
And that one's called Obsession. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, it's called the Obsession because it was an obsession of mine.
Perfect.
So do you have any other ones laying around there close to you that you can show us?
Yeah, I mean, so here's the problem is I have like 20 something models of knives that I shoot for. So I have something like the Bloom, which is a nice little EDC. It's being passed around right now. The red and black Kieranite one is kind of being passed around right now. I have a completed rock copper. I have a couple actually, but this is one that I completed recently, and this is called the rock copper.
Yeah, that
Kieranite looks excellent. What's that Kieranite called?
This is Bengal Tiger Kieranite, and I did the little bead on it as well. So I made the bead, and that's rock copper. And I've done, this is my personal rock copper, and I do the sheaths as well, but
oh yeah, that's nice.
So everything is rounded. So the spine is rounded all around the handle. You got the copper liners and pins and tubes. And again, custom bead made by myself. But yeah, that's my personal rock copper. So
that's awesome.
So the rock copper, the Bloom, I have a Thorn. So that's a nice little flat back design. And I do have some bigger stuff. this one is a fun story behind it. I know it's kind of hard to see. Hold on.
And what's the overall length we were looking at those previous models, just for scale?
The overall, so the rock copper overall is about 5.5, and the pedal is roughly the same. The thorn gets a little bit longer, but they're all right around that. So
nice.
I know I saw Bluminati. He has the biggest knife I've ever made. But
Whoa,
that's the Yocto. And actually, I haven't finished one right here.
Oh yeah, is that G10?
So, this is okay. So, are you guys ready for another story?
Yeah.
So, I started my Instagram and I started posting photos of my work, and this guy reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I have a design. Would you like to take a look at it?" And I was like, "Sure, why not? I'll take a look at it." And he sent me a picture of a hand-drawn design. And I was like, "Yeah, that's a cool design." And he's like, "I'm a leather worker. I don't deal with steel. Would you like to make that knife?" And I'm like, "Sure." He's like, "I'm in Germany." And he was like, I'll send you an acrylic blank." So I don't know if you guys can see that. It's just a clear acrylic blank of that knife. So he got this acrylic blank sent, and he sent it to me and was like, "You can have this design. You can make this knife however you want." So he kind of gave me his blessing, and that's where kind of this came from. On my Etsy store, I have 3 of these packages left. So what it is the Yocto knife in AEB-L stainless with the little removable handle scales, which are he got them made in Germany. He got them 3D printed out there. It's some type of polymer that it's pretty heavy duty stuff actually. But each one of these is numbered, and they all look a little different, but they come with this box. They come with, he sent me from Germany these leather pocket sheaths that he made. I made the Kydex sheath, so if you want to scout carry or carry it in a different way, you can use the Kydex sheath. He actually made this coin purse, and then he got, of course, if there's a purse, you got to have the coin. He got these coins made for me. AriesEDC on one side, and then I can't hold things, and then the Yocto on the other.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's cool. Yeah.
So there's only 5 of these coins in existence, and I have one personally, and the other ones all go with these packages, which are all on my Etsy store right now.
Nice.
So you get all of those things in that package.
That's cool. Yeah, I think Randy linked to your Etsy store just a little bit up, and then Kathleen was asking, can you hold up the Bloom and Obsession together? I think she wanted to see a size comparison.
Yeah. All right. So here, I'll show you the real thing. So that's a Bloom. That's my personal Bloom. So it's a little rough, but I use it every day. And that's your Obsession.
Nice. So almost identical in length, just a little bit thicker on the Obsession, or wider.
Yeah. It just has a little taller blade and a bigger handle, but both of them, as far as length, they're pretty much identical.
Awesome.
As far as blade length. And I do bigger stuff. Recently, so I just showed this off on my Instagram today. I just got the bevels ground down on this one this afternoon. This is a model called the Pistol. So I get a little bit bigger, but again, this is just kind of like a fun little side thing for me because I don't see how you EDC that. It's just, for me, that's a little big.
Well, you're sending that one to a giant, right?
Well, that one's for Maddie for Mattisfaction. So there you go. in his hand it might look like a bloom. I don't know. And then this is probably the biggest one that I do. It's called the crow, and so I have another crow in the works. But I forgot what the blade length is on that one.
Nice.
Overall, it's about 8.5, 8.25 inches long, and the blade is about 4.25, a little bit bigger than 4.25 inches. Yeah, Bluminati has the only other crow in existence right now, so it just kind of stemmed from a spare piece of steel that I had laying around in the shop. It kind of had that shape, and I was like, let me.
What's the blade stock thickness on that one?
The thickness. This one is. What was this one?
Like 3/16 or something?
Yeah, it's like 3/16 or 5/32.
Yeah, it looks pretty beefy.
Yeah, it's beefy compared to the 1/8 inch.
Yeah.
So it's a little beefier. Yeah, I wanted this one to be a little bit beefier. The one Illuminati has was almost 1/4 inch thick blade stock. So
yeah. All right. So he
that
can
was
chop down trees.
yeah, he can chop some stuff down with that. And then just because I like to show off, this is one that I completed for myself just to see if I could do it. This was my actually this is my first Damascus knife that I ever did.
How did you find working the Damascus? How was that for you?
It's weird because when you work Damascus, at least I got my Damascus from Alabama Damascus.
Okay.
I was at a blade show, and that's kind of, they had a booth set up, and I bought a couple bars from them. And it's weird because it can get hard, so it work hardens really fast. So I found it a little bit tough to work.
Really?
But once I learned it, then it's fine.
So tell us how your books look right now, and how do folks go about getting on those books to get a knife? And are you like making to order, or do you sort of make a batch and put them out there?
So when I started, that's kind of what I did, was I just started making, and then I just kind of put it out there, throw it on my Etsy. Nobody knows who AriesEDC is, so whatever. Currently, the way that I started it this year was every month I open 5 slots for my books. So I take on 5 full, well, not full, but I take 5 custom orders. And at the end of every month, I'll release a video on my YouTube channel, and I'll announce it on my Instagram with a link to the YouTube video. And in the video explains all the models that you can pick from, the 2 different steels that you can pick from, and kind of the price range of what things are. Everything is kind of open depending on the handle material that you're picking and all the other little nuances that come with it, because the handle material is the biggest thing. So I let the customer kind of pick what they want for his handle materials, and I try to guide them to a color or material that they're looking for and a price range that they want. So, if you're starting with the G10 or micarta, those materials raw materials are a little bit cheaper. So if you're looking for a color or pattern with that, there's just G10 and micarta. You can spend a couple hours just looking through the different colors of G10 and micarta that are out there. And then the Kieranite has been very popular lately, but it's a little bit more expensive to get in. But it cleans up and it looks amazing. I'll show it again.
Yeah.
But
I'm really digging Kieranite lately. I'm like all about the Kieranite.
Everybody's been really digging the Kieranite. This stuff, it cleans up nice. It gets a nice high polish. It's so random pattern with that stuff too. And in the sun, it just glitters. But it is a little bit more expensive to get, and sometimes it's a little harder to get too. So the way that once that video comes out, if you message me on Instagram, or you can shoot me an email, AriesEDC@gmail.com, And I try to get the first 5 people that reach out to me, and they get a spot in the books. And then we can start working out, okay, what blade do you want? What steel do you want? What handle material do you want? What kind of Kydex sheath do you want? Do you want a lanyard? Do you want a bead? What kind of finish do you want on the blade? Do you want it acid etch? Do you tumble? Do you want it hand satin, belt satin? And then I come up with the price for that blade, and then they give me a thumbs up, and then I move forward and we get started for that month.
Awesome.
So that's pretty interesting. It's almost like you're doing custom production stuff. Like you have your line, like here's what I offer, but you're going to make each of them custom to a certain degree, right? Not completely, but
I mean,
yeah, that's
they're
cool.
they're all custom. I mean, it's just
yeah.
It's just they're picking a model. They're not creating their own model. I mean, I have had a bunch of people reach out and they want me, hey, take a look at this design and do this. And sometimes I'll work with them and create a new model. And then sometimes it's like, okay, that's probably not going to be my wheelhouse to do something. Like, I don't know if Cheeto is in here or.
Yeah, I think I saw him in the chat just shortly ago.
Yeah, I saw him.
I've been sharing this one on Instagram. He sent me this design. I thought it was interesting. Nice small blade shape with full fork handle. And hey, oh father, what's going on? So I kind of on the side have started to put this together and turn it into something real for him. So it's a really interesting design that he came up with. So there's like that one. This is another one that I worked with somebody. They were giving me ideas, and we were going back and forth, and we ended up coming up with this. This is a flamingo. Stacy Bolster Blades actually worked with me on this one to come up with that design. And then, oh wait, it's right here. Tim B. Oh no, where is it? Then the last one is this, the Tobiko. I have one cut out somewhere. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah. So he kind of helped.
Interesting shape.
Yeah, he kind of helped come up with that. Your thumb gets right up there on top, and it's right there, 3.5 or 3.5 fingers. Yep. So those are like full customs, but I mean, they still end up being model, and all those people have signed off to say you can make more. Look forward to seeing more people make. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you're still getting a full custom. You're just picking one of my models and go with it. And please, no more custom model. I have too many models right now. I have like 25 different models that I'm working on, and it's just too much.
Yeah, at some point you gotta shoot. That's enough of that.
Yeah,
so
I have too many of these little pieces of wood laying around.
Yeah, just a quick follow up on that question. I know that depending on the amount of customization they want, the price can just continue to go up incrementally. What's like the entry base level price if somebody wants to get one of your knives?
So if they want a smaller model, I'll pull out a couple of them. If they want a smaller model, it starts right about $100. If they're gonna pick something like this is the Creep, and this is like a skeletonized model, so it doesn't get any handle material or anything. So that kind of would start off at about 100. I have this one. It's the pedal. It's right about $100 if you're just gonna do just G10 with 80 CRV2 carbon steel. You're gonna start right around $100 with just keeping it nice and simple. And then once you start with micarta or acid etching or doing liners and doing all these, then it starts to go up from there. So yeah, I try to make it as affordable as possible. I don't want to rip somebody, but and then this is you have the obsession, and then I made a mini obsession. So
Oh,
that
nice.
one's
Cool.
right about $100 too. So it's a nice little 3-finger little cutter that it's a little smaller than the minimalist actually, just a little
Yeah.
smaller.
And are you doing all your own kydex and stuff with those?
Yeah, I do all my own kydex. I do all of the sheets myself. I do everything myself. So when I got into this, that was one thing I wanted to do is I wanted to have control over everything I possibly could within reason.
Right.
And the only thing, and I'm honest with everybody, is the only thing I don't have control over is the heat treating of any kind of stainless steel. But everything else I do myself. I start off with a bar of steel, and I cut it to shape. I grind it. I do everything in house. So
what happens when you get to the point where you can no longer do that? I know that your April books, when you open them up, sold out in 30 minutes, right? So as you begin to scale this whole project, what's it look like? Or are you just content rolling with what you're rolling with, or are you trying to just continue to grow?
that's a scary thought. So I am happy with the way that it is. I'm happy with the 5. And just to be honest with you, I end up doing 5, and then I'll take 1 or 2 other ones on. So I end up doing 7 or 8. My latest video, I think I have 10 knives on the table right now that I have working on in one way, shape, or form, which is a lot. But I did it to myself, so I have nobody to blame but me. But I'm happy with that. To take any more step up, I would have to upgrade some of the machines that I have out in the shop and work less, which financially I'm kind of strapped with where I am right now. So I think I want to see the rest of this year out with what I'm doing and see how that is. I know for a fact that if I just was taking people's names down and putting them in the book, I probably would have been able to fill up through June at least.
Wow.
With people that couldn't get into April and people who are still interested in me making them something. So I can't mentally, I can't be like, okay, I'm going to get to that in June. I have to focus on what I'm doing now, or I'll just get way too much.
So as it is right now with what you're currently doing, from order to delivery, I know stuff always happens, but what's the turn time? What's the wait time?
I like to say 6 to 8 weeks. But some of the carbon steel 80 CRV2 that I can do everything in house. I think I turned this month. I did 3 of those knives in about 3 weeks. So if I can do everything in house and I can focus on it, like this rock copper, I was able to get this done from start to finish in about 2.5 weeks or so. So, but I like to say 6 to 8 weeks because I never know what's going to happen and if things are going to push it back or not. So, and then with me sending the stainless out for heat treating,
right?
I've had that come back within a week sometimes, or like right now, I still have 2 blades at heat treating that I sent out at the beginning of March, and they still have it. So I was told today that they're going to ship it back, hopefully tomorrow. So I'm still waiting for those to come back. So unfortunately,
I think Jack from Shed Knives said the same thing. When you're sending out for heat treat, sometimes you get them right back. Sometimes you're waiting a month,
Yeah. They say it takes them 2 to 3 weeks. And I'm honest, I use Peter's heat treating out of Pennsylvania. They're like the staple in the business to do that. And and I pay a premium for them to do that, but I know it's going to get done right, and they always come through, but sometimes I have to wait.
Yep. Yep. And so with the YouTube channel, was that a product of wanting to show off the knife making process and what products you offer, or did you start with YouTube and kind of work your way backwards to making knives there?
Yeah, it started off as a showcase for me to be able to share the stuff that I'm making. So in the beginning, when I first started making knives, this was just supposed to be a hobby, which it's still a hobby. I consider myself a hobbyist maker, but I've kind of turned it part-time. And it was like, okay, I'm going to make these knives. I'm going to start making these knives. Well, eventually I need to sell them. How am I going to sell them? So I need to get it in front of people's faces. So that's when I started my Instagram, and then I started showcasing stuff on YouTube. And then it kind of went into a different direction. And then I started showing the process, and that became popular. So I just kind of gone with that.
Yeah, people like that stuff. They like to see you in the shop working. I mean, I've noticed that some I'm going off schedule here, but I've noticed some channels that are like newer channels, but they're different. They focus on rehabbing knives or getting old junkers, fixing them up. Those channels just explode. People just love watching people work. Yeah. It's crazy.
And I also want to be transparent with everything that I'm getting. So like currently, like if you are on my books and you get a knife from me, you're literally watching it being built on my channel. So, and I've had some people in like, cause on Fridays, I do a live stream from the shop and I'm out there just working, and people are in there and they're like, I can't believe I'm sitting here watching my knife being made.
Yeah, that is pretty cool.
So, and it stems from having a bad experience with a custom knife maker who didn't communicate with me what was happening.
Yeah.
And so now I'm like overly communicating and I overly share, and you're always going to get some kind of update. If I don't update you, then I'm going to release a video and you'll get updated there. So
I can't think of anybody else that offers that you can see your knife being made. I can't think of anybody.
Yeah, it's just something that I fell into, and it's I don't know, it's just what I'm doing. It just feels right to do.
Yeah, that's cool.
You've mentioned a couple different steels on different models. Do you have a favorite to work with?
ADC RV2 and AED are my two steels that I have found that I really enjoy working with. They're easy to work with. They're forgiving, and they clean up really nice. So those are the two steels. So ADC RV2 is more of my budget steel. And I say budget, just both of them are probably in the same wheelhouse as far as toughness and hardness retention and everything else.
Right.
But I can heat treat the ADC RV2 myself, where AED, I have to have that added price onto that because I have an added price having to send that out to get
right.
So, and stainless blade is just going to cost a little bit more than the ADC RV2. But those are the two steels that I've been working with mostly.
I love ADC RV2. I love it. I think it's great. I hope you continue to work with it, because I think there's, a lot of people want stainless steel, but I think there's still a market for the other stuff. I think there's still guys out there that like it.
And it's very popular in most custom knife makers.
Yeah.
They're using it. Or if they're doing Damascus or a Kumai where they're sandwiching Damascus, they're using the ADC RV2 core. And that's where the edge is going to be. So it's a very popular steel, and it's for a reason, because it has good toughness, it has good hardness, and it's just a great steel. And it's forgiving to work with. So
yeah, for sure. What about
and it's available?
Most importantly, right?
Yeah.
What about when it comes to handle materials?
As far as like what's my favorite to work with?
Yeah, I guess what you do work with, and then which one's your favorite?
Which one's the biggest pain in the ass to work with?
It's funny. So I've worked with many different types of handle materials: G10, wood, I just did a fat carbon recently. I worked with fat carbon. I actually KC Spearon for Knives Fast has his rock hopper, and I used fat carbon on that. It turned out really nice. But I've used all kind of different G10s, and my Carta seems to be the most pain in the butt to work with.
Really?
Really?
It just on the grinder, it just because it's a fiber within, and so that fiber, once I get it to roughly shape, then I can sand it pretty smooth. But it's not easy. Like this one is both the linen micarta, and it's both of these materials are micarta, so I can get them nice and polished up to look good. But it's as a raw material, like that's kind of a block of micarta, and it's kind of a pain in the butt to get shaped up to look good. But once you get there, it just takes a little bit more effort. But like your resin materials, like the kieranite and everything else, it's actually fairly easy to work with.
That's interesting. I've never heard that.
Yeah.
What about, so to this point, you've only been making fixed blades, right?
Yeah.
Have you thought about, has it even crossed your mind to enter into folders or slip joints?
It has entered into my mind, and actually I've been invited to learn how to do it. Not to take up too much time, but a quick story. I told you guys my entry into fixed blades was the minimalist, right?
Right.
I befriended a couple of makers here locally, and they invited me to a barbecue, and we were hanging out, and he was like, yeah, there's going to be a bunch of makers there. Bring some of your work and you can share it. And I was like, cool. And because when I get to share my work with other makers, that is huge because they can give me tips and tricks, and you did this, maybe you could do this better. And that makes me a better maker. I can take the criticism. I know I'm not perfect, but I'm trying my best. So anyway, we're sitting here talking, and at some point everybody starts pulling out knives and passing them around and emptying in their pockets. It's just, knife people, it's going to happen.
Doing nice stuff. Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm sitting next to this guy. He pulls out this folder and he opens it. He's like, yeah, I made this a long time ago. I was like, you made it? He's like, yeah, I made it. I take the folder and I look at it, and it says Foltz on it. And I was like, what? So yeah, it was Alan Foltz. I was sitting next to Alan Foltz.
Oh, wow.
And I started showing him my knives, and I was like, oh, geez. And, but he was like, oh, you're a maker? You need to come to my shop. I can teach you how to do folders and teach you how to make, and you can come take a class with me. It's free of charge. I won't even charge you.
That's cool.
It's just,
how cool is that?
now I need to get back in touch with him. I need to find out how to do it and see if I have the tools capable of doing it. Because when you start to getting into that folding mechanism and precision that it takes to make sure, because with a fixed blade, if you're off by 1,000th or 2,000ths of an inch or something, you're fine. Nothing's going to happen. But if you're off on a folder, no, start all over again. You better start over again, because it's just not going to work. So
no moving
there's just
parts to worry about.
There's that precision that's involved with folders that would take a lot. I would love to be able to do it. Believe me, I'd look at some of my designs. I'm like, can I make that into a folder? How would that pivot work? But it's just
that's the exact same thing Jacob said last week. It's like, you guys have the skills to do it, but it's a whole different animal. The level of precision and the amount of time that goes into getting it right, it has to be something that you really want to do,
it has to be, that has to be perfect every time. And, or it's not going to lock up right, or there's going to be rattle, or there's going to be, and I am a perfectionist, so that would drive me crazy.
Yeah. Oh, I bet. So where do you get inspiration for your knives? And when you're starting on a new design, do you start with a drawing? Are you using CAD? Are you thinking of form or function first? Like, what do you go for first? Aesthetics, or how's this thing going to function?
Functionality is number one.
Yeah.
How it feels in your hand, and if it's going to be safe for the user. Someone asked me recently. Here, I'm going to show this one. Someone asked me recently why I always do this and why I don't continue the sharpened edge down to the heel of the blade here, even though I have a finger choil. Why can't I do that? And I'm like, well, it's just unsafe for the user. I feel you're getting too close to the edge. And there's a lot of production folders that has that forward finger choil, and your finger's right there on the edge. But when you're talking a little fixed blade, I feel like you're going to end up getting into boxes, and I don't know. It's just safer that way. You're still right there at the edge to do it. But I gain inspiration from the production world. I might find a blade shape that I really like, and then a handle shape that I really like, and try to place those two things together. Okay, for instance, the rock hopper, and I've shared this on my channel before. The blade shape is very reminiscent of the penguin.
Yeah, it is.
Which is why it's called a rock hopper, because rock hopper is a type of penguin. And then the handle I kind of got from like a mini griptilian. And then I just kind of put those two together for that design. So I gain my inspiration from the production world. A blade shape that calls to me. I really like that kind of blade shape. How can I change that into something else? Right. And then it just turns in. I'm trying to find something for you guys, but it turns into just really, okay, what else can I do? And then I take that design and then I turn like a nice like sheep's foot type style into, this is the puffin.
Oh yeah, cool.
So I don't know. That's where I gain inspiration from. And then it's the production world is where I gain inspiration from. I might see a shape and then I try to say, well, what would that look like if I turned it into a fixed blade? And that's kind of where I gain my inspiration. And then all of my designs start off as a drawing. So I don't really work with CAD. It all starts off with a paper drawing. I'll draw it. I cut it out on paper. I transfer it to the wood. And the wood allows me, just like I did with the Obsession, the wood allows me to get an idea of what that feels like in my hand.
Right.
Then thinking of the thickness of the handle materials, but how is that going to feel in my hand? How is that as a user? Is it going to work? Because a little fixed blade, you're going to be up here a lot, or you might be cutting open a box. So how does that feel in my hand? How is it going to work? And then that's kind of where it all goes. So I have my book where I'm just doodling and coming up with different designs. And then I keep playing with it. I'll make little notes and I just keep playing with things until I'm like, okay, yeah, that's kind of weird. Maybe I could do that. And it just turns into, I start messing with blade shapes, messing with handle shapes, and then I come up with some of the designs that I have. So I don't know. It's just my process of doing things.
Yeah.
So
do you ever go as far as mounting the handles onto the blanks?
I'm sorry?
Yeah.
Do you ever go as far as like mounting handle materials onto the blanks to see what it feels like?
I have. For the Obsession, I did. I have to move this camera out of the way to get it out. So for the Obsession, I did. While that Obsession was out getting my first Obsession, when that guy was making it,
right,
I was bored, so I ended up putting making another blank, and then making wooden scales for it, just to see kind of rounding it off and seeing what that would feel like. So,
that's cool.
But
yeah, that is cool.
normally I don't. I can picture in my head, like I made the thorn. What if I rounded that? What's that's gonna feel like? So I could just tell when I get that in my hand that just adding that extra material on there is gonna feel really good. And then sometimes some of my models are skeletonized. They're purposely skeletonized. So I came up with that. This is it's called the naked column, and it's supposed to be a skeletonized blade. I round off everything, and it's just a fun little EDC fixed blade. So
yeah, that's sweet. So I always ask this question. I know it's always tough because they're all your designs, they're all your babies. But do you have a favorite, and do you have one that you're maybe most proud of?
Ooh, proud of? I don't know. Proud of? I'm proud of each one that I'm able to finish. To be honest,
yeah.
If I'm able to make it and do it, so I have two that are my personal favorites. Only because one of them I purposely made for me because I felt like it was a good all-around EDC shape and would come in anything, and that's the Bloom. It's a nice EDC size. You can get that tip into opening a box or puncturing something if you need to. If you need to break down a box, you can break down a box. If you need to choke up on it, you can get up here on the tip. It's 3 fingers. And I have the integral lanyard.
Yeah.
So just like on the Minimalist, it's designed for 3 fingers, but they always have the little lanyard on it. And I just kind of took that and was like, yeah, that totally makes sense. So the Bloom is probably my favorite design just because I made it for me in mind. And then the Rock Hopper is my second favorite, just because that's, I don't know, there's something about that design as well that's very utilitarian and is just a great blade shape. The handle is very comfortable. It gets right in your palm. The blade itself has, the handle comes down, and then your thumb ends up being right there on top of the crown of the blade, right there, the spine. And it's just, I don't know. There's something about that is very comfortable and is very easy to use. So those two. So the Bloom and the Rock Hopper are my 2 favorite designs.
Awesome. What about when it comes to outside of your own designs and maybe outside of the Minimalist, since you've talked about that one a little bit? What else do you like to carry?
So as far as knives?
Yeah.
So on a daily basis, I'm always carrying some type of folder. Like today, I was carrying my the Quiet Carry case. So I was carrying that with me today, along with my Bloom. So I had that with me today. So I always have some type of folder and then a fixed blade. I personally don't like a lot of things in my pockets. So I have my keys, my wallet, and then I have a folder, and I wear my fixed blade on my belt. Scout carry in the front, right side pull, and that's kind of my daily need. While I'm at work, I have a multi-tool and I have other things, but that's on my backpack. I don't really consider that carrying it because it's on my backpack. But some people still think of that, because if that's the case, then I have a multi-tool and another little fixed blade and a little screwdriver and some other stuff.
Jesse McJames was asking, do you make a compact Tonto blade?
I don't make a Tonto. That's one thing that I'm working on. I worked on some ideas for a Tonto. I haven't really fully flushed that out yet.
Gotcha. What about when it comes to leather sheath? Do you have any interest in leather making, or is it strictly
So,
kydex mostly?
so I have done a leather sheath. So I made my first Damascus knife was this guy.
Right.
So Damascus, it's burlap micarta with copper pins. I'm going the wrong way. Rosewood, and then it has the copper line, whatever material here with the JG10 in there.
Right.
So I have all of that in there, and I felt like doing kydex for this knife really didn't make sense. So I wanted to make a leather sheath. So I did make a leather sheath, but I'm not a fan of working with leather. I'm obviously not very good at it, but it does hold the knife. But I don't. This knife stays in a locked case. I don't ever carry this thing, but it does have a leather sheath, and it does function, but it's not very pretty. So I have tried to work with leather. I'm just not a fan of it. I'm not a fan of it.
Right. So outside of the yoke dough, probably won't see a ton of leather sheath.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm glad you brought it up. So the Yokdo packages have that, and you can tell just by looking at that versus, you know, professional, not professional, but yeah, he did so probably not. But there's so many guys making really great pocket leather sheaths that you can get one made, and it's so much work to do leather versus kydex that the price is
Right.
just going to go up immensely on the leather sheet.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. You mentioned Alan Foltz. I think you mentioned someone else a little bit earlier as well. Has there been any other knife makers that have really helped you kind of along the way to get where you are now?
Yeah, there's been a couple. After I had the really bad experience with the first knife maker, I told you guys that I met another knife maker at that show. And I reached out to him after the show and I got him to make me one of his models. And his name is Jim Honey. I'll hold something up here in a second. But he made me one of his knives. And this is like, I keep this because that's like the standard of which I feel like I want to live up to. Really clean micarta, blue liners. He does everything pretty much in house as well, except for some of the heat treating. And when I started, he was the one that introduced me to the stock removal knife maker, Mike making, and so I picked his brain majorly. So this is Jim, Jim Honey Knives. He is a full artist with some of the stuff that he does. But there's his website, so you guys check Jim out. He's awesome. So he was, whether he knows it or not, he was kind of like my mentor, where I would pick his brain and be like, "Hey, what are you doing with this? What are you doing with that? What kind of?" And then he's part of that Gator Cutlery Club that I go to, and so when we get together, I talk to him. And there's Dan Pellegrini, who's kind of like the person in charge of the show there. And he's an old time maker and been making knives forever. And I'll go to those shows and I'll bring something I'm working on. And they'll be like, "I see you're doing this. Have you ever tried using this tool?" And they've always given me tips and tricks and being like, "Hey, try this." And then I'm like, "Okay, wow, I never even thought about that." But that just made my life so much easier to do it that way.
Right.
So they give me little tips and tricks, and now I've met so many great people within the making community now, and everybody's willing to help and to give assistance when needed. That I know within a moment's notice, I can text somebody or reach out to somebody on Instagram, and they're right there, able to help me and give me all of what I need. So it's awesome.
And you mentioned shows. Are you currently doing any shows, or do you have plans to do the show circuit?
I don't. I don't have time. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, if I did a show, it would just probably be that one a year. They keep asking me to set up a table at the show, and I'm like, I don't know if I can I could make it, because for me, I'm like, I at least want to have 10 knives on the table.
Yeah.
And the daunting task of making 10 knives on top of everything else that I'm doing is daunting for me. I could probably do it. I just need to get started now.
Right.
Are you going to Blade Show Atlanta as an attendee,
No.
or are you just going? No.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
I heard that's the one. That's always the one everybody goes to, but I heard that's an all weekend 3-day thing to even get around and seeing anything.
Yeah, it's exhausting.
Yeah, you didn't talk me into it, though.
It's a lot of fun too. It's an amazing time. But yeah, it's tiring.
Yeah, no, I've heard that. And because I'm a production guy too. I love seeing all the new production stuff come out. I have production folders. I have a bunch of production folders in my collection. So I always kind of mix some things up. I recently did a review on my channel. This guy reached out to me from South Africa, and they sent me some knives. He's a knife company out of South Africa, and they're making knives and releasing them in South Africa. And he sent them to me, and I did some reviews, and I'm kind of passing those knives around. I don't have any. I wish I had them with me, but I sent them out. But I like folders and everything else too. I just the fixed blades is something that I do.
Right.
Any favorite brands, production brands, or specific knives that you just love?
I don't know. The specific knives is hard, but I am a big fan of Civivi and Wee. The stuff that they do, they fit within the price in which I can afford, and then a lot of the size of what I do too. So, like, I'm not anything 3 inches, around 3 inches, 3 1/4 and under is my wheelhouse. That's where I like to be. Anything bigger than that, I kind of get lost. I lose interest. Although there's some beautiful stuff out there, but within the price range and size and the materials on which they're doing, that's kind of where I like to be.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with those. They have a lot. Some of those Wee knives are pretty dang pricey, though, man.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't say Wee, but I have my prize, like my grail, was a Wee hyphen. I picked up a Wee hyphen a couple months ago in December. And I was like, okay, I'm done. I can't buy anything else.
I'm done. Yeah, I know how that feels. I say that at least twice a week. I'm done. I'm not buying any more. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So you check your email and see what's coming out, what's on sale, what's dropping.
Yeah,
I need to unsubscribe from everything. I need to unsubscribe because that's what gets me. I get the constant email barrage, and then I'm like, oh, I have to have that one, of course. Yeah, but I don't really.
One in my collection that is and it's not even a Civivi, but one that's got me is the Vosti Nightshade.
Oh yeah, that's a great one.
I don't know that thing. I love that thing.
Yeah, I've got the regular base model Nightshade, but now I need the mini because when the mini first dropped, it was gone immediately. But now they're back out there, so I got to have one of those. That's on the never-ending list of things that I have to have.
And they got the new colors too.
Mm-hmm.
They got the new materials on it, I think, as well. So
yeah, they have like the premium offering now with carbon fiber upgraded steel.
Yep. But yeah, some of the stuff Vosteed is doing is crazy. Kaiser. I mean, everybody. That's the problem, is I can't keep up. I cannot keep up.
So many come out. They just come out so fast, and so many. And then for me, once you send it my way, Dick Ritchie, you know my address. You can send that mini Nightshade over to me. I'll take it. Yeah. Once you have so many knives, though, for me, once you have so many knives in your collection, a lot of them begin to look the same, and then you really start to get more selective about what you purchase. You know what I mean? So I'm sure everybody goes through that cycle. So if you've been doing this long enough. So we're running out of time here. Do we have any last questions from the chat? And is there anything you want to promote before we wrap it up, anything you want to share with us or let folks
just
know?
the Etsy store, and Patreon. So I started a Patreon channel just recently, and anything that goes in the Patreon is just going to help me grow the channel, stay on top of getting materials, getting different camera stuff and lighting, and maybe some more abrasives for the shop. Because one thing they don't tell you as a knife maker, you buy a lot of belts and sandpaper. Just something that you go through so much of it. But other than that, the Etsy store, I have the Yocto packages. You get this waterproof insulated box. You get the knife, you get the sheaths, you get the coin, you get the coin purse, you get all of those things. $285, I think, is what I have on their price right now.
That's a
And
deal.
you get all of those things. I have 3 left. Somebody purchased 1. There's only 4, and they're actually numbered too, because I knew this was a limited thing that I was going to do with the scales that were made for it. And if you reach out to me, I can actually send you the CAD file for you to actually get your own scales made if you want in a different color. So I can't tell you where to get it done or anything else, but I've reached out to some people, but they're all numbered. I don't think my lighting is going to pick it up, but in the etching right here, they're all numbered. This is 2 of 4 or 1 of 4, so they're all numbered. And that's the only time I've ever numbered anything is for this package. The pocket sheath is really excellent quality, and the Yocto is a really nice design. Very comfortable. Your thumb gets right there on the top of it. So
Yeah, it looks like
I
just
have
right
that.
size.
And if you're interested in getting on the books, subscribe to the YouTube channel, because that's where I announce, and that's where you're going to get your information on how to get in the books. And then subscribe on Instagram, because that's where the quickest way to message me is just message me on Instagram. And if you are subscribed to me and you're interested, message me on Instagram so I don't have you in my hidden, because then those messages sometimes get lost, and then I'll miss it. So if you're interested in being in the books, you just got to follow, because I usually at the end of the month, once we start getting to the end of the month, I'll open the books for the following month, and that's when you'll know. But yeah, I look forward to whatever you guys come up with, because you guys throw out some really crazy stuff for me with all the handle materials and everything else. The pile I have over here is going to be really interesting for the month of April.
Awesome. Looking forward to the videos on them.
Yeah, you guys make sure to subscribe on YouTube, follow on Instagram, go check out that Etsy store. Hopefully you'll sell those in the next couple days, those ones that you have on the Etsy store. You guys go out and get one. I think that's a heck of a deal. All that for whatever you said, $285 or whatever it is. That's awesome.
Yep. $285, that whole package.
That's
awesome.
a deal.
And I think some people are afraid. They think it's a production. And it's like, no, I made that.
Right.
I mean, it's 4. There's 4 of them, right? You made 4 of them?
I made 4 of them. So
yeah, super cool.
Well, thanks thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks to our moderators, Randy's WSG, Cheeto Bandito, Bluminati Ninja. You guys make sure you go sub to them, and of course, go check out AriesEDC and pick up some of his work.
Yep, and thanks to everyone in the chat. See you next week.
Thanks, guys. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Yeah.